Hello, everybody. I'm Derek Arden, and welcome to Monday Night Live, live and uncut podcast. I have lots of thought leaders on, and today I have Hilary Briggs. Hilary has a very interesting career CV. Worked in Germany as a chief executive, went to Cambridge University and studied engineering. I'm curious how it was studying engineering as a woman in Cambridge a number of years ago, and now is a professional speaker and a gold medalist for Great Britain in the triathlon. Welcome, Hilary. Thanks for joining Monday Night Live. And perhaps you could give us a quick snapshot of your life.
Yeah, be delighted to. Thanks very much for having me here, Derek. So as typical with these things, it all started when I was born, and that was in Workington in the northwest of England, right up towards the borders. I was born in a hospital in Workington because I was a month early, and I guess that might have given some clue that I was always going to be a bit impatient maybe, and also looking for process improvements right from the get-go. My father worked in the nuclear industry. For those of you who know, there was a big nuclear site in the Lake District, so that's why we were up there as a family. After a few years, he got a posting to Vienna, Austria, with the International Atomic Energy Authority. And so I started school out in Vienna at the English school. Came back to the UK, to the northwest. Was at Manchester High School for Girls as my main education, secondary school, and then on to University of Cambridge. As Derek said, I was really thrilled to get a place to study engineering there. I guess he's mentioned the triathlon. I can see there's almost three stages of my career. So perhaps university and then into corporate life was perhaps fairly reasonably normal area to go, even if engineering was a bit unusual. At Rover Group in Oxford for 10 years, different owners. It actually had been taken over by BMW by the time I left. Then off to Italy, 2.5 years working for Whirlpool, domestic appliances, back to London, and then Germany with Laird Group. There was a bit of a transition then into self-employment and working with small companies, SMEs, helping them to grow. I've done various roles there, and more recent times I'm actually now back into consulting and speaking, as Derek has said, so another transition. And now I'm really trying to integrate actually all my experiences from what I've learned from a slightly crazy journey in triathlon, where I've gone from absolute low-grade amateur, very lofty goals, finish, don't be last, to podium in European Championships and World Championships. The gold medal was in Europe, I should correct that, and the silver medal I got just a few weeks ago in the World Championship. But really thrilled to get that.
You don't need to correct anything on this show.
That's
Don't
no
worry. We're
worries.
happy to big anyone up that comes on the show. So your dad was worked at Sellafield, the nuclear
Yeah,
plant.
yeah.
And I just wonder if you're a bit radioactive, really,
I
because you've certainly got certainly high energy, aren't you? But
I
let's
think
talk.
there might be one or two bosses that I've had slight clashes with in that I might think I'm a bit radioactive, but I probably do glow in the dark, so I don't need any extra lighting above the camera. So yeah, that all helps.
Congratulations. I'm curious about why you went into engineering and also ended up in the Rover Group. You said that Graham Day, whose name I remember, I think who was there in Rover Group, wasn't he, to try and save it, and probably sold it to BMW. He took you under his wing, didn't he?
Yeah, I think, I mean, going into engineering, first of all, I love doing the sciences. So again, fairly standard maths, physics, chemistry, A levels. And actually at a girls' school, it was no big deal doing sciences. At least half the sixth form did maths of one sort. So it was no big deal doing that. But I think I remember going on a week-long course at Loughborough University during one of the holidays, and that was all encouraging more women into engineering, and it really gelled with me, because I thought, I like the sciences, but physics and so on, to me, looked a little bit too theoretical, or that was, for better or worse, that was my perception. Whereas engineering seemed more practical. There was sort of actually links with, all of the objects around us and things. Everything has to be designed and made. So that's sort of resonated with me. So I wanted something that was a bit more practical and linked to the real world.
How many
And
languages do you speak? Because you said you were in Germany and you were in Italy.
Italy, yeah. But again, it's interesting at school. So we had to do Latin and French as well. Okay, English, and I struggled with the English spelling. Actually, the Latin really helped me get better grip of English and grammar, because no one seemed to teach grammar properly.
Hi, Steve.
Yeah, I wanted to
Just one moment.
That's all
just
right.
wanted to get
I've
into
muted John Lisby. Yeah.
okay, yeah, I wanted to get into well, I thought German, there was an opportunity to do German, and I thought, yeah, that would be useful. And in the sixth form, there was an opportunity to do Italian, never thinking that I would end up living in the country, a number of years later. But I guess one of the things which I think was particularly for my dad was keep your options open. And so it was a bit of a sponge, really, and absorbed. I thought the languages would be useful. And yeah, the German I did a little bit more at university, but when I got parachuted into Germany, never. I mean, there's a big difference between doing O level and a bit more business German at uni, and then actually operating pretty much full time in German. But I had a lot of things against me in the environment there, in that I was young, foreign, female, from the head office, and I thought, well, I've got to build as much as I can to build trust and relationships with people on the ground. So I made a conscious choice that I would do my best to speak German. I mean, some of the more senior people spoke English, and that made life a bit easier, but it was it was a very big challenge initially. And I think looking back on it, there was one really extraordinary instance I had when I came back to the UK. I met a lady who trained all the chimpanzees for the PG Tips adverts. I don't know, some of you may remember those. And she had this story about chimps having a sense of, if they liked somebody, they would kind of offer a fist out to do a fist bump. If they didn't, they'd sort of hide. And I thought that's really interesting, because we're related to chimps and so on, and having that sense on whether you can trust somebody or not. I think I was actually, because I couldn't speak the language as proficiently as I would have liked to start. It did get better, but I was probably having to rely on those more primitive instincts in a way, about, someone could say something and I may not understand exactly what they're saying, but it's kind of, yeah, I get it. I'm trusting you, rather than, or else it's like, no, there's something I don't quite like here. I found that was very interesting. With say, it was perhaps with hindsight.
Okay, let's wind the tape back a little bit. So you worked for Rover for 10 years, then you were headhunted by Whirlpool to work in Italy or Milan somewhere. And then
Yeah.
Sir Graham Day came back and head parachuted you into Laird Group in Germany.
With it, I was
as
in
a
the head
female,
office in, yeah, I
as a
was in the head office in Laird for about a year to start off with, or yeah, just under a year. And then yeah, the situation, they wanted to make some changes in Germany, that things weren't working out as they wanted. So I think they tried experienced people. And again, this is probably me being very naive in my mid-30s, thinking, yeah, I can do stuff. They tried to find experienced people to go into the role, but I think anyone with any sense gave it a wide berth. So I was probably the lost option they'd got, really, and thought, well, we'll see what Hilary can do with this. And so it was, I was making progress, I think. And one thing that I've learned as well is that slow progress is progress, but sometimes goalposts move. And also it was just in bulk on everything, whether the morale was really low, ridiculously high absence rate. I think it was over 12% absence rate. There were all sorts of problems with big customers. So this was a car component business supplying Ford, VW, GM, BMW, all the big players. And there were lots of projects that were running late and over budget and so on. So It was, and then I had a factory burned down, and it was just unimaginable amount of things to grapple with. So I
You were
think
the you were the CEO.
yeah, I was
Four thousand people.
Chefsführerin was the title, sort of managing director of this. Yeah.
Wow, wow. How was your stress levels?
Well, I think having had the experience in production management at Rover, I mean, that was one of the things I think with Graham Day that Sir Graham Day, that I was very grateful to, again, to have the opportunity. He was looking for more graduates, and particularly female graduates, to go into the production management because he wanted to get change. And I think because it was unusual, he could see that it was a way of getting more change in there, because people just didn't necessarily know what to expect. But it was a tough environment, and not just for being a female. There were a number of male colleagues who actually did have nervous breakdowns. I think, if I'm honest, I was probably on the verge of one at times. So it was, survival of the fittest, a Darwin thing. Not everyone did survive the environment, but I kind of developed strategies which have borne me in good stead in all sorts of situations. So one of the sayings that I developed during that time was spending 5 minutes a day doing something to make tomorrow better. When you've just got so many things on your head, it's being able to narrow things down and say, okay, out of all the things, I really need to do this. And even I say 5 minutes a day, you start to get control of things. And if you're able to do that consistently, and except there'll be some days when it won't happen, but over 3 months period, you can actually start making progress. So that really helped me.
Sure. And you said that, so you used the words, I got kicked out of Germany in the end. And I asked you in our rehearsal, what did you learn from that? What did you learn from it?
I think this thing about, if you're going in a turnaround situation, I think it was much more of a turnaround than either myself or the head office appreciated. But you've got to have this squad of people with you, that not only that you can come in all together, but you know how each one works, and you just immediately hit the ground running. I was building my contacts in Germany. I was changing the management team. I was building relations with the workforce. In a situation like that, you don't have time for that. And I think the other thing was that, yeah, I was relatively inexperienced. And I think looking back on it, if you take a sort of 80-20 type scenario, there was probably 80% of things which I wasn't familiar with. So I was having to go from first principles and try to work my way through it. And it's not that you can't do that, but again, it just takes too long. When I've done a managing director role more recently, a much smaller company, I was the 80-20, I would say, was the other way around. So there was 20% of stuff that I didn't know and was having to work out. That becomes much more manageable. And so I think, again, I mean, I had worked hard, as I say, my sponge liking of trying to hoover up whatever knowledge you can all the time. It's not that I was sitting around just waiting for things to happen, but it's, I guess you can't, there's a limit to what you can actually absorb over time. So maybe a few grey hairs helps. But yeah, I think it's maybe being a bit more realistic about what you can and can't do. But on the other hand, you get an opportunity. I learned an awful lot. I mean, there were successes I had. I did build the links with the workforce. I had to speak. I mean, when I arrived, I took groups of about 200 or so employees at a time, just a short speech in German. You have to speak to the whole workforce at least once a year. So not everyone of the German groups of about 2,500 on the ground there, but I mean, I spoke to about 1,700 in the local ice hockey stadium, a half-hour speech in German, and my knees were knocking, and that wasn't just because I was cold standing on an ice rink. But I think, and I was under so much pressure at that time as well. I remember, so the talk was on a Saturday morning. Wednesday night, I woke up at 2 a.m, and I've never felt in such a state of panic, and I hope I never do again. But I stayed up for a couple of hours doing a load of mind maps of just, get what I thought I needed to say, and dictated in my best German to a secretary the next day. Friday, I was in the UK being grilled by the management. I get back Friday evening, I get a script, and I'm reading it through, and I'm thinking, I don't quite understand this bit. Is that because she's corrected my German? My German was so bad. or has she put a slightly different spin on it? And so I changed some bits back to what I thought was right. I got a standing ovation at the end, so I don't know, I must have said, you know, we're going to double all the salaries or something like that. It wasn't quite that far off, but it was yeah, an interesting experience again.
Do you think that people were conspiring against you because you're a woman and because you were English in a German environment?
No, I don't think so. I think actually the fact that I'd made the effort to speak German and actually try to get to the bottom of what the problems are, and I think that maybe it's my engineering bent. And it's something I find in the sporting world with the triathlon as well. There's no, forgive the language, but there's no room for bullshit. You know, I'd rather get it. If we've got problems, let's understand it, let's get to it and fix it. Same wise in sport, you know, if I don't do a good time or something goes wrong, it's, well, what can I do about that? And work with coaches to work it through. There's no point, you know, I come across so many people that are full of themselves and, you know, saying everything's marvelous, how marvelous they are. Immediately I have people like that, whether I meet them in networking, whatever, I'm suspicious, I'm afraid, because people I know in whatever field, if the people are really good, don't go around that way. And so I think, you know, I just try to be yeah, simple, maybe a bit stupid at some points, but naive. But you know, if we got issues, let's work on it and find a resolution. And I think again, some of the learning I've had from the triathlon, and I've worked, someone has helped me to clarify the process that's taken me from low grade amateur. You know, I was literally finished, don't be last, was my kind of thinking when I started 7 years ago, in my mid-50s. And you know, to get to the podium, and there's kind of three basic elements really of it. One is, and really have the motivation. You've got to care enough about whatever it is you're doing. You've got to care about it. You've got to figure out from all the things you could do, what is it you're going to do, and start. And then you've got to measure the performance, and out of that, hopefully you get more motivation because it's going in the right way, and it also helps determine what to do next. And in the worst case, if you decide, if it's not going well and you really decide, I don't want to do this, that's okay. Let go of it, find something else that you do. At least you can move on then. And I think it's very sad when I come across people saying, oh, I wish I'd done this, or I ought to do this. Well, either do it and experience it, or carry on with it, or let go of it. You know, don't be in that state where something's just sort of niggling around in your head. That's just wasted energy in my book. So
Absolutely, that came out of Carl's talk last week. You know, if you don't want to, if you're not 100% committed to it, move on and
yeah.
do something else. And we do see so many people struggling with things, and they think they should be doing it, and
Yeah,
actually they don't
I
really.
think as well the analogy, and I love, maybe as an engineer, I love the space shuttle and the picture I have in my head of those big booster rockets on the side. To me, the motivation, the initial motivation of why on earth do you want to do this, whether it's triathlon or, you know, don't care what it is, you've got to have the motivation strong enough to get you off the launch pad and on your way. Then as you're doing things, and as if it's going in the right way, what you want to look at is building this virtuous circle where as you do things, you're getting increased motivation. That's providing them more rocket fuel to keep you on the way into orbit. So it becomes not only self-sustaining, but accelerating. And I think, again, I found as I started to get some results in the triathlon, I mean, I say I had no idea there was all this age group activity, Team GB, and so no idea of that. But as I started to win a couple of events and in my age group, and then you find out about things, you think, well, could I possibly do that? It seemed like a really big stretch. But then this thing is that as your brain starts to focus on a challenge, whoever is necessary or whatever information starts to appear. And I think that's the thing. If you acknowledge problems and have the reality of, okay, this is what it is, may not be what I want, but you're open then to solutions. If you're thinking, I've got everything, I'm so marvelous, your brain is not looking for solutions and you won't find them. So I think that's why, to me, being honest about reality is a key part. If you want to be successful and improve your performance in some way, you've got to have that connection, however painful it is.
Let's take you back a minute because some people on the call may not know what a triathlon is. Talk us through what a triathlon is.
Yeah, so it's a multi-sport combination of swim, bike, and run, and there are all sorts of different distances. I do the standard distance, or sometimes known as Olympic distance, which is 1,500-meter swim, nominal 40 kilometers on the bike, 25 miles for those in the old money, and 10k run, 6-mile run. And then you've got transitions between those that you're basically trying to do as quick as you can. So it takes round numbers. I've done the fastest I've ever done one is about 2 hours 30. So 2 hours 30 to 2 hours 40, something like that, depending on, each course is going to be slightly different, but that's.
Wow. And what is the Olympic? If you were 21, what would you be expecting to do your 2 hours 30 in?
Yeah, so you catch me. I think the elites are around the sort of 1 hour 50, 1 hour 55, that sort of level.
I think that's right. Yeah, no, there's a few people nodding as well. I think that's right. So how much training did you have to do for that?
Yeah, so again, I suppose I think that one of the factors that was a big flip for me that to get into a different mode was I'd only just started. I did a couple of short events in 2016, and the experience on the swimming was quite horrendous. Actually, in the first one at Eastbourne, with a very strong currents in the sea, but I survived. I didn't get swept away, and I kept at it. But then I had a massive injury to my Achilles. Again, long story with that, but I made such a great job of it that they had to replace the tendon. And I actually had a fear that I might not walk properly again. So the doctor actually, after the surgeon, after the operation, said he'd never seen a tendon in such bad shape in a living person, he added. And so I took whatever the physio said, I took very, very seriously, made lots of notes, and I did the exercises religiously. So I think, when we talk about motivation, I think there's motivation to do something, and I wanted to get back to doing triathlon. So that was a towards motivation, but there was also an away from, say, this fear that if I didn't do it, I wouldn't, might not walk properly again. So it was an 18-month recovery. And I actually, the discipline to keep going at it, it wasn't, I never gave up hope because I could see improvements all the way through. And yeah, so I kept at it. And then after I did the first standard distance triathlon back in 2018, I carried on doing the exercises. Then I had some other issues with the other leg was moaning because it was doing more of the work. And that prompted me to get a first trainer. I'd never trained properly, naively or arrogantly thinking, well, I do my running and cycling. That's it, isn't it? Well, no, it's not actually. And I think as probably one of the reasons I got the injury was, mid 50s, I've not done strength training. I was fit for sure, but yeah, the older you get, you need to be doing the strength work. And that's actually what's made the difference now. And I guess I train kind of 12 hours a week, that sort of plus or minus.
Sure. Now you live in central London. How do you do that in central London? I was curious about that.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? So during the season, I mean, I'm very lucky. I've got a German pool very close to me, 20-meter pool. It's good enough. So I go swimming most evenings, even just for sort of half an hour, because I'm still trying to improve my technique. And so I go for coaching. I get videos and video nasties, as I call them, and you can see I'm not doing it right. So it's a continuous battle to improve that. Running, I'm very close to the parks. Cycling, I get down to Richmond Park, or actually last year I started doing time trials. So at the weekend I can easily get out of London on trains and do races, and I do other park runs and things around because it's race practice. I think that back to my experience in Germany, one of the things I was lacking was the equivalent race practice of going into that kind of turnaround situation at that scale. So I practice the elements in, I'd say, battle conditions, but if I'm only having to worry about the bike piece, I can absolutely hammer it as much as I can. I'm not having to worry about running afterwards. So that gives me an idea of what actually my capability is. like I was in a running. I'm still trying to find equivalent for swimming that fit in the agenda, but it's kind of breaking stuff down. And then in races, both the way races I've done this year at international level, I've had situations where I've had to really fight hard over a few minutes. And in this most recent one, there was a lady who had caught me up on the run. She was gaining on me at 11 seconds a kilometre from what I could see now looking at the data. So with just over a kilometre to go, we were neck and neck. And somehow I managed not only to hold her, but actually to gain. I won by 11 seconds. So that was a real mental battle and just throwing everything at it. And I thought, well, I'll give this the best go, you know. And yeah, it came off.
Now on the tech, we're nearly out of time, Hilary, but this is so fascinating. On the technical front, when you did that talk on the main stage at the Professional Speaking Association's annual conference, did you show us some goggles which had the timing in the glass of the goggles, or am I dreaming that up?
Yeah, no. It's something again, just a conversation with someone in at the gym, talking about these goggles she'd got, that they've got a head-up display. So yeah, as you're swimming, you're getting feedback on, well, you can have a variety of data, distance per stroke, time, speed, stroke rate, all sorts of things come up. So I think one of the things when I talk about measuring progress and so on, having real-time feedback, I found has really helped me. Say on the bike, you know, I've got a computer, I'm looking at the power from the pedals. So it helps me to understand what good feels like. And having had that awareness, I've then kind of been open to try that both for running and the swimming as well. But again, that feeds across to all sorts of other things in life. If you want to get better, having a way of getting that feedback as objective as you can, as close to the action as you can, then that's where you get the improvement. So if it's not right, okay, what do I need to change here? And then you can make the adjustments. If you're waiting, you know, a few days before you get the feedback, you're not going to remember what you were doing, and it's the whole improvement loop is going to be much longer.
Absolutely. Well, we're almost out of time now. Have you got one last tip for anyone watching this, anyone live, or anyone watching this on YouTube or on the podcast?
I
At the same
think
time, I'm going to put up your details in the
oh yeah,
background.
please. It would be great. You know, would love to carry on the conversation. I'm happy to, you know, if you want, I'm say working with small business owners as predominantly, but you know, opportunities to speak and so on, or just have a chat. You know, for do connect with me on LinkedIn. If Derek just moves the side, there's a QR code. Which
I'll
you
move
might
out
be
the way for a minute. I think that's
yeah.
the best thing.
There you go, the QR code to connect with me on LinkedIn. Be delighted to have, you know, a chat and just in whatever area. But I think my final tip would be, it's never too late. You know, I was mid-50s when I started doing the triathlon, just for a bit of a laugh, really, because I like challenges and let's give it a go, and never believing possible what I've achieved. So I think whatever stage of life you are, just if you fancy having a go at something or somebody challenge you, just do it, and you'll be amazed at what you can do. I feel it's so sad. I mean, not only people in the 60s, 70s or whatever, but actually I hear some people in their 20s saying, oh, I couldn't do that and it's too late to do that. Rubbish. You know, excuse management is another expression I use quite a lot. And that, just learn whatever excuses come up. We've all got them. Just manage them and put them in a box. It's never too late. Just do it and you'll be amazed. I think focus, when you really focus, it's unbelievable what you can achieve. So have fun.
Absolutely fascinating. It might be too late for one or two people on here, including me, and they know who they are, to do a triathlon. But a pal of mine plays hockey for St Albans Hockey Club, and he's 80, and he's just got in the England over 80s veterans hockey team.
Well,
Hockey's far too dodgy on your backs to play it. I gave it up when I was 44, but
well, yeah, I mean, I was inspired in the international events, and just coming back from Spain a few weeks ago, there were a number of people in the 80 to 84 category, men and women, doing standard distance triathlon. So yeah,
really,
it really inspiring. Yeah.
Hilary Briggs, thanks for joining us. And will you stay on and answer some
Pleasure.
questions?
Absolutely.
I ask members of Monday Night Live to give Hilary the usual vote of thanks in the normal way. Thank you so much for joining us, and I hope you'll come back and tell us how you're getting on with some of these triathlons a bit later on.
Absolutely. Thank you.